you're struggling with what God has given you, then you got a problem. Amen? Amen. Some of y'all like, why would I have I'm struggling because I'm struggling. No, you're struggling because you're having a problem with handling what God has given you. How many of y'all have ever said, He is my provider? Amen. And then you turn around talking about how am I going to make it? A young man was on his way to school one morning, and his father said to him, he said, look, I'm going to give you $10 this morning, and on your way to school, I want you to stop at the store. I want you to buy 3 packs of lollipops. They're $3 a piece, plus tax. Your $10 will cover it. You got 20 lollipops in each of these packs. What I want you to do while you're walking to school, as you're passing along the way with all of your friends and all the people going to school, tell them you got a lollipop for sale for 25 cents. If you sell all of your lollipops, you will have $5. Thereby, you can purchase your lunch, and you will have $10 for the next day to do it again. The boy said, okay. Went to the store, bought the lollipops, ate 2 or 3 of them himself, gave his best friend a couple, a girl he liked. He gave her a whole pack. He sold the rest, had about $7, $8 left, and bought his lunch with $5, came back home with a couple of dollars, and his father said, you ready for lunch tomorrow? And the boy said, no. His father said, what happened? He explained to him what happened, and his father said, for your disobedience, you will not eat. A lot of us are struggling because God has given us some instructions on how to handle His resources, and we have eaten what we weren't supposed to, given away when we shouldn't have, allowed someone that was attractive to take it, and then tried to make it work with the rest and have the nerve to go back to the Father and say, my ends don't meet. So, interestingly enough, as you go through Proverbs, the very first thing that we get from this area of our lives is a warning about handling God's resources. And the warning is interesting because in chapter 6, now, by the way, this is still David talking to Solomon. All right? In chapter 6, in the first verse, we get this warning: don't become surety for anyone. He says, my son, if you become surety for your friend. Now, a lot of you may not know what surety means. So I gave you a definition. Look at your paper, that's your handout. Let's look at the definition. A person who is legally responsible for the debt of another or the money or thing of value put down to guarantee the debt. Should there be a default, this is the part you really need to pay attention to. The surety would have to pay the debt or even be enslaved until the debt was paid. Judah became surety for Benjamin to Joseph. That's when Judah told Joseph he was going to bring Benjamin, and if he did not, he had to go back and answer to his father. All right. In today's world, we look at this as, kind of like when you co-sign. When you're co-signing for people. In Israel's economy, there was no real commercial practice for lending. You couldn't go to a bank and get a loan. Most everybody functioned on what they had, but when you ran out of something and there was a necessity, you might have to go to someone who had and ask them if they could loan you some of what they had, and they might have said, since you ain't got nothing anyway, find someone else who has a little something, and I'll give you what you're looking for as long as they'll pay me back and a little bit more. They want to make a little interest on what they were doing. And it was always for necessities, not for wants and desires, but just necessities. So I want to stay within the context of how Israel functioned in this way. And by the way, we're going to look at how Jesus became surety for us. Yeah. But I want to stay within the context of how this functioned within Israel. And just to show you how this worked, everybody turn to Nehemiah. and find the 5th chapter and find the first verse. So Nehemiah is prior to Proverbs, just in case. You might not know that. It's after Ezra, if that helps. It's before Esther, if that helps. If neither one of those help, you have a table of contents. Okay? It's 650 in my Bible.
What chapter?
Chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Now, background real quickly, there's a famine. Y'all know what famine means? Young people, y'all really need to pay attention to this before y'all get out there and get into this mess. Pay attention. All right. And, verse 1, chapter 5, verse 1. And there was a great outcry of the people and their wives against their Jewish brethren. Now, if it was the people and their wives, that's husbands and wives, they are mad against their Jewish brethren. Pay that close attention. For there were those who said, now remember, there's a famine. We, our sons and our daughters, are many. In other words, we got big families. We got a lot of kids to feed. Therefore, let us get grain that we may eat and live. So, they're basically crying out to those that have. These are those that don't. We need to eat. Can y'all give us some grain? Verse 3. There were also some who said, we have mortgaged our lands and vineyards and houses that we might buy grain because of the famine. Now, y'all see the words mortgaged? All right, young people, older people are supposed to know what mortgage means. We don't. But it means that they took out a loan on what they owned in order to eat. All these people want to do is eat. Is that a necessity? Yes. All right, so it's not for a car that they don't need. Come on, say amen, shame the devil. Come on. It's not for clothes they don't need. It's for food. All right, it's for food. All right. Verse 4. There were also those who said, we have borrowed money for the king's tax on our lands and vineyards. You even got people now saying, we had to borrow money just to pay our taxes. All right? We had to eat and we got to pay taxes. Verse 5. Yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children, and indeed, okay, hold on. When he says, when they're telling Nehemiah here, our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children, let me put this in a way you can understand this. This is the people that are hungry telling the people who aren't hungry and talking to Nehemiah, look, last I checked, we were human beings too. We were Jewish just like they are. We have the same God they have. And when I looked at their kids and I looked at my kids, their kids and my kids, they look alike. Both of them need to eat. I don't see a difference in being rich or poor other than they get to eat and we don't. There's a famine in the land. This is not because they were misusing their money. There's just a famine. There's a need. And so it says, and indeed, we are forcing our sons and our daughters to be slaves. And some of our daughters have been brought into slavery. So what they're saying now is, because of the situation, because of what's going on, because we had to go out and borrow this money that we couldn't pay back, you know what they did? They took our kids and made them slaves. We've already sold off our daughters. It is not in our power to redeem them. Do y'all see that? What they're saying is we don't have, we had to do this in order to eat. Now that we've eaten, we don't have it. We can't do anything about it. For other men have our lands and vineyards. Notice R. Do y'all see R? He didn't say other men have taken. It said they got our stuff. They're holding on to our stuff. Now, this is the harshness that the Israelite faced if they got caught up in this type of thing. Now, here's what's interesting about all of this, and this is where I really want us to understand and pay attention. When someone is in the position of having to borrow for necessities, Do y'all understand that they're poor? That's what poverty is, by the way. So I need to emphasize this. I don't know anybody in here, and some of y'all are going to say, well, you don't know my financial situation. But I don't know anybody in here that's poor. I mean, some of y'all are skinny. 2, 3 of y'all in here. But a lot of y'all look like you eat well. I'm just saying, I'm looking for the necessity. How'd you get here? Isn't it funny how we let society define what poverty is? See, when the society defines what poverty is, and when society tells us where we are from a financial perspective, all of a sudden we throw God out the window. If you've never heard me say this before, let me say it again. You're poor when you can't eat. You're poor when you can't get out the rain. You're poor when you can't cover your naked body. If you can cover yourself, you're not poor. If you can get out the rain, you're not poor. If you can eat, you're not poor. Now, watch this. If you can choose what you want to eat, you're rich. If you can literally go to a closet and say, I ain't wearing red today, I'm going to wear blue today, you're rich. If you can walk in one room and out another and go to a different room, you're rich. You're only going to be, y'all remember we did this whole sermon series on identification? Identify yourself according to what God says. Because most of us are rich. The problem with being rich is we get beside ourselves with it. It's not enough to have a change of clothes. Got to have Gucci. Can't do Wrangler. We have to have, some kind of a name brand. Y'all like my suit? Nice, isn't it? J.C. Penney's. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. So everybody turn to Leviticus and find chapter 25 and find verse 35. This is how you don't fall for the prosperity gospel, by the way. Because you'll sit back and realize, what do I need to worry about prospering when I'm already prosperous? My problem is just I need to work on how I handle what I have. So everybody, Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35. If you have a good study Bible, it probably says something about giving to the poor. Amen. All right? You there? Yes. All right. If one of your brethren becomes poor. Now, do y'all see that? You might want to understand this. If one of your brethren becomes poor. I defined what poverty was, right? You can't eat. You can't, no place to stay. You can't, they don't have clothes. All right. If one of your brethren becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, in your area where you can see it, in your community where you live, y'all getting me? I want y'all, because I don't want y'all to miss this next part. Then you shall help him. Now, before you go, this is for the Jewish people. It is for God's people. Please understand. Please listen carefully. I'm not getting in your business. I don't want to be in your business. God does. God says, if within your sphere of where you are, you see someone that is poor, he doesn't tell you, what? You know what's not here? Pray for them. Uh-oh. Somebody said, I thought prayer was powerful. It is. Pray for yourself. That you're obedient, because for some reason God put you in a position to see what was going on. See, the prayer needed there is on you. Because if you are rich, as defined by what rich is according to the Bible, you bear the responsibility of helping out that person that is poor. I didn't make that up. Didn't that what they said? Then you shall help him. Now, I like this part. Like a stranger or a sojourner. Now, like a stranger or sojourner, if you were an Israelite, you would understand this because the law said if a stranger or someone that is traveling through comes into your country and if they don't have anything, your hospitality says you will help them out. Now, the law here is referring to your brother or sister. This one is like, hey, Jewish person, the next Jewish person you see that is poor, you need to take care of them like you would a stranger. This should tell you if God had to have a law for this, what was actually going on. People were overlooking their own. Overlooking their own. Okay, now I'm really going to get into it. I'm going to get into it. Is that okay? Yes. All right, I'm going to get into it. This is where people misunderstand the church. The church is not a welfare organization. It's not. In fact, I take you to the New Testament and show you where Paul says it's a shame if you have a family member that's in need and you don't handle that thing. Sending them to the church when you know you can handle it, that's a shame. You're not supposed to do that. The funny thing is people outside of the church think that's what the church is here for. They think the church is in the community to be somehow or another a welfare. It's not. What God wants each of us to do is take on the responsibility. If he has given you the resources that allow you to live the way that you live, he's saying, surely you have enough that you can give it to somebody else. Let's take care of it as we see it. See, if enough of us took care of things that we saw as soon as we saw them, we probably wouldn't have the problems that we have today. Now, because we are in Proverbs, of course, you're going to use some discretion and you're going to use some wisdom, right? You're going to use some discernment. This means you got to talk to people. Amen. Everybody holding a sign is not in need. Yeah, you got to get out and actually know someone. Because some of us as Christians, what we like to do is we like to drop off a couple of dollars and feel like we've done something. It means you have to be committed to understanding. I want to go back up to verse 35 again. If one of your brethren becomes poor, if you'll think about that for a second, notice the words here. If one of your brethren becomes poor, evidently you knew them prior to the poverty. How many of y'all ever known someone that became poor? I mean, all of us in here probably have seen someone that has one day been okay, and then you find out the next day they're not. All right? So what he says is, it's up to you. You got to take care of them. Verse 38. Verse 37. You shall not lend him your money or usury. Usury is the flip side of surety. Usury is the one that does the loan. Usury is where you give somebody something and say, pay me back. Nor lend him your food at a profit. I don't want you to get too technical with this and say, well, this does say I can lend. No. If you have it, give it. If you don't, don't. That's the best way to be with people, because back up in verse 36, at the very end, verse 36 says, take no usury or interest from him, but fear your God that your brother may live with you. What that means is you don't go out and exploit someone who is poor, trying to take interest from them that they don't have, putting them in a position where they'll always owe you because you need to live with them. How are you going to live with somebody and they owe you? Because you know what your life is going to be like with them. Your question for them every time you see them is going to be what? Where's my money? Pay me. Where you get them shoes? You look a little big around the middle. You been eating? What you have last night? Steak? You should have had beans and given me my money. Right? You will turn into them crafty people that call, bill collectors. I remember back when I got out of college and didn't understand any of this, took out loans and did all kinds of crazy stuff and couldn't pay nothing back. I had a bill collector call me and say, look around. I was in my apartment. I'm like, what? He said, look around. I looked around. He said, what do you see? I said, I see my apartment. I see my furniture. Furniture. I said, yeah. He said, you can sell that. Wow. I said, sell it? He said, yes, your credit's going to be bad. And I said the dumbest thing that people can say when somebody says your credit can be bad. You know what I said? Let it. That's just dumb. I owed the money. I owed. You know what it's called when you don't pay back? That's called stealing. I'm sorry, bankruptcy is stealing. It is. It's legal stealing, but it's stealing just the same. It's stealing. It's thievery. You knew you couldn't pay for it when you got it. Okay, so verse 38, this is why all of this is this way. And this is why, especially younger people, please understand this. He says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now watch this, to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. See, if you were an Israelite, this is what you understood. God put you in a place called the promised land. And when he put you in a place called the promised land, what he promised to do was give you. Listen to what I'm saying. He told the Israelites, I'm going to give you the land, and when I give you the land, I'm going to give you enough. I'm going to give you enough to give. I'm going to give you enough to meet the objectives of your daddy, Jacob, who made a vow to me to tithe. I'm going to even give you that. I'm going to give you everything you need. Now, I set before you a blessing and a curse. It's real simple. If you take what I give you and do with what I tell you to do, then you will be blessed. If you don't, you'll be cursed. But here's the thing. I'm going to bless you first because I'm going to give it to you first. Y'all got to understand this. God gives first. And then he says, what you going to do? How you going to manage it? Go buy the lollipops and sell them like I told you to. That's the way God functions. So, he says, my son, if you become surety for your friend, you're in a trap. You're messed up. Because he says, if you have shaken hands in pledge for a stranger, even with a stranger, to shake hands back then, that meant something. Don't mean much today, but it meant something then. That was like signing the contract. That was your agreement. Now, so let us help ourselves with some quick principles about how we should handle God's resources. Never contract for more than you can pay. How's that? Never contract for more than you can pay. That good? Are you sure? Think about it. Never contract for more than you can pay. You sure? Y'all got that? You understand? You sure? Are you sure? The reason I'm asking, are you sure, is because some of us contract all the time on something called credit card. No, it's a contract. When you pull it out, it's like a handshake. And we like credit cards. We don't like debit cards. Right. Because debit takes the money when? Right then. Right? You ought to like the debit card. See, every time you use your debit card, you ought to give a little hallelujah. Right after it goes through. Hallelujah, thank you. That's when you but bless his name. Yes. That's when you do that. But too many of us are hallelujahing on the credit card. Now, I'm going to say, yes, I have a credit card. I got two. I didn't say it. We got two. Amen. There we go. We got two. I do like the fact that my credit card gives me money back. Right? So I can use that to pay on the bill. I try to treat it like a debit card. I really do. I try to treat it that way. I'm like, you're going to give me a little back and I just pay it. Right? Just pay it. I don't like, balance better be little. of nothing. My debit card, though, is the one I like. That's why that's the cowboy card. So that when I pull it out, I look at it, yes, Cowboys. I like the Cowboys. I like my debit card. I like my debit card because I know that if it goes through, everything's okay. If it doesn't go through, I don't need it. In fact, if I'm worried about it going through, I don't need it. I don't need it. What a credit card does is causes us to contract for things we can't pay for. And here's the funny thing. It ain't going to be a necessity. No, when you are in the department store sliding credit cards, that ain't a necessity. Come on, think about it. I mean, you buying a pair of shoes, and you got 45 pairs. At least. But you're broke. You're poor. Never contract for more than you can pay. All right, here's another thing. Don't hurt your family. How's that one? Don't hurt your family. And if you're single and it's just you, don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt your family. And watch this. Don't hurt your support of the gospel. Now, let me back up here because somebody's going to say, ooh, he's talking about giving in church. I'm not talking about giving in church. I'm talking about you putting yourself in a position where you got to go get 2 or 3 jobs and you can't go to church now because you're trying to pay back what you contracted for. I'm talking about where you don't have time for anything. You can't go to Bible study. You can't do anything because you're always at work. Here's the sad part. People will look at you and go, ooh, you hustling. No, you're not hustling. You're behind. Me and my daughter going back and forth right now about that word, hustle. There's no such thing as hustle. You're behind. You ain't hustling to get ahead either because you're already ahead. Why y'all ain't saying amen? Some of y'all don't believe that you're ahead? I know y'all don't like this because I'm all up in your business. Some of y'all wondering what's in my closet, ain't you? There's a whole lot of clothes in my closet. A lot of clothes in it, Adrian. Everywhere. But it's a lot of clothes. Got too much. Never contract without expecting to pay. Never contract without expecting to pay. Never contract without expecting to pay. So let's go back to surety for a second. That means that if you co-sign for someone, you are basically saying, I will pay it. That's what you're saying. Now, it's going to get deep here in a second. But what you're really saying, why do they need a co-signer in the first place? Because they can't pay it. And the person that's loaning it to them knows they can't pay it. So now they're saying, I tell you what, find somebody that's going to pay for you. I know some of y'all sitting there, you're like, man, I've been through this. I have been through this. I done co-signed. Look, as parents, a lot of us want to co-sign for our children. Don't. Let me help you out. If you're a parent and your child is like this big, start saving for them. Save for them so that when they get to where they're out, just give them the money. And then if you want to be a fool with it, be a fool with it. I saved it for you. I try to train them on what to do with it. But don't put yourself in a position where they're walking back in with a piece of paper talking about, I need you to co-sign. Avoid that. Because unless you're saying, I'm going to pay for it. And if you're saying, I'm going to pay for it, skip all of that. Just pay for it. Skip that piece of it. Just because you're going to create a breakdown that you cannot live with them in the relationship because you're going to end up mad. You said you were going to pay. You lied. They didn't lie. They came to you with something that said you would pay. That's what it says. It doesn't say they have to pay. Let's understand what that contract says. It does not say they have to pay. It says you have to pay. And you don't know, they may lose their mind and decide, I ain't paying. Since you signed it, you pay. All right. Here's the results of surety. Verse 2. You are snared by the words of your mouth. It's It's your fault. You can't even blame them. You are taken by the words of your mouth. Your agreement, in other words, has trapped you. So take responsibility. Now watch this. This is what's going to get you. Who provides your resources? God. Who wants you to handle your resources? God. When you are surety for someone else, guess what you just did? You put those resources in their hand, and they are now in control of what God gave you. Because if they don't pay, you're going to be doing something that God says don't do. This is not about being harsh, by the way. This is about being godly. If it's a necessity, give it to them. Give it to them. Give it to them. But you know what? Don't put yourself in a position where now someone else has control over what God has told you to have control over. Y'all follow me? How many of y'all know that's what debt is, by the way? Someone else has control over what God has now given you, right? So why do we do this? Why do we do this? Okay, couple of things here. Ego. Yes. It's ego. I studied, I looked, I was like, I even asked the Lord, I said, Lord, why do we do this? If you tell us to do one thing, why do we do it? Ego. Now, every man can understand this. See, it starts with you, I'm talking to the men, trying to be more than you are because some pretty-faced girl smiled at you. See, I got to go to the men first. Ladies, y'all will get this. Because she smiled at you, you're ready to break the bank. To get her. And this is your ego. That's all it is. This is your ego. See, your ego works this way. How many of y'all have ever seen the movie Top Gun? You ever seen Top Gun? That's my movie. There was a quote in Top Gun that always got me, and I can understand it. Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. Our egos do this. We want to be helpful because we're a little narcissistic. We like it when people say thank you to us. We want someone to feel we are somebody. The reason I brought the men into this, and they're looking at me like, I don't like you, but they know I'm telling the truth. We like it when a woman looks at us and goes, oh, my Savior. And you can't save yourself. Your ego will get you into trouble. This is why God says, have some discernment. Step back. Look at the bigger picture. All right? Because here's the, men, I'm going to help y'all. But most of us are already married. But those of you that aren't, you young guys. If you got to break the bank to get her, you don't need her. Because she's going to keep breaking your bank. Understand, if you got to break the bank to get her. Now, ladies, let me help you. You got egos too. Here's your ego. If he's willing to break the bank to get you, you don't want him. Because later on, you're going to regret that you have it. Yes, because the bank going to be broke. So you don't want that one either. You want the one that will look at you and say, I can't afford that. Oh, wait a minute. What? I can't afford it? Yes, that's the one you want. The one that knows he can't afford that. He's going to keep you out of trouble. Now, as I've told Trinity, hey, look, if the guy can't take you to where I would take you to eat, leave him alone. Oh, so here's the thing. If he can afford it, you good. If he can't afford it, you don't need him. Why you don't like that? If he can take you where you want to go and afford it, keep on working with it. I know what you're saying, but I thought it was about love. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. You ever love broke? Love will ease up out of you. It'll ooze away. So understand, because if you understand these concepts, then you will put yourself in a position where the first thing you'll understand is God is giving you resources in several different ways. Jobs, relationships, all of these different ways that God gives you resources, and you're supposed to handle them appropriately. See, when he says here, if you become surety for a friend, and when I look at this, I also see that we become surety in a whole lot of ways. We're guaranteeing paying stuff in a whole lot of ways. It's okay to have a dream. It's good to have dreams. Financial dreams, we're going, this is what I hear from our younger generation now. We're going to build an empire. Yeah, you and everybody else. Here's your empire. You ate. When you got mad at each other, you walked in different rooms to cool off. When it was raining, when it was hot, when it was cold, you were able to go into air-conditioned rooms. When you wanted to put on clothes, you put your clothes on, looked in the mirror, didn't like what you saw, and were able to put on something else. You have an empire. You have an empire. If you can walk out and look at more than one car, you got an empire. If you're able to pay Uber, you got an empire. I don't know why y'all ain't clapping. Somebody else driving. You're able, if you can pay them, you have an empire. What good is an empire if you're worried about it?
That's right. Amen.
So what if I've already messed up? What if I've already put myself in this position? Here's your only course of action, verse 3. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself. Save yourself. For you have come into the hand of your friend. You are now under their control. Now you need to be delivered from that. Go and humble. Boy, I like, where are my original text people? Okay. I love the way this is in the Hebrew. Lay down and let him trample over you. See, once you get into this trap, what David is telling Solomon and what Solomon is telling us, he's saying, once you get it, you got to get out. By any means possible. If it means going and laying down and say, oh, just trample all over me, but I need to get out of this thing. Humble yourself. Ask, please forgive me of this debt. Let me out, please. Plead with your friend. Y'all know plead means beg. Don't go in there, I ain't too proud to beg. You are not too proud to beg. Let your ego go away. Your ego is going to get you into trouble. Once you've made this error, what is literally being said here is you shouldn't have. And if you have, here's the only thing you can do. Beg to get out of it. Because you're obligated to it. And it's going to hurt you. You are now not a good steward of what God has given you. Beg to get out of it. Then in verse 4, he says, give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Don't you rest until you get out of it. Do y'all understand? He's literally saying that once you're in this thing and you probably stuck, you spend every waking moment trying to get out of it. He's trying to make a point here. Don't do it in the first place. Deliver yourself like a gazelle. Like a gazelle. You know what a gazelle does? A gazelle runs fast. Run like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. Find a way to get out of this thing. And like a bird from the hand of the fowler, like a bird caught in the trap. Find a way. You ever seen a bird get caught in a trap and just bang around and bang around? He's saying, don't you stop, keep banging. Get out of it as best you can. Get out of this. Do not get into this in the first place. Do whatever you can to get out of it. Because when you become surety, you are responsible. The only person that ever put themselves in this position and was able to pay it is Jesus. Because we owed a debt that we could not pay. Now, I want you to understand that Jesus co-signed the debt before the foundation of the world. He co-signed. He was surety for man before man even came into existence. Do you know why he became surety for man before man came into existence? Because he knew he could pay the debt. How many of you all, if you've ever done this whole co-signing thing, knew first you could pay the debt, and secondly, you would pay the debt? Now, would comes with some caveats. Would means that you're going to pay it no matter what. This is why you don't become surety. Would means you're going to pay it even if it means it's going to hurt you. Because this is an act of love. A total act of love. When Jesus became surety for us, it was out of love, not for us, but for the Father. Because the Father knew that we would not be able to pay the debt. Therefore, the Father, just let me in my sanctified imagination, the Father looked around heaven before he even established anything and said, who's going to co-sign for them when they get into this debt that they can't pay? And Jesus said, I got you. Before we showed up. Before we showed up. And that's what he did on the cross. Have you seen what went on at the cross? Now I'm going to ask you a question. How many of y'all in here want to go out and die for somebody? Anybody? Raise your hand. Nobody? Don't become surety. So, two things. First of all, don't get into this trap. 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 If you do this, you're putting someone else in control of what God has told you to control. That right there should tell you something. If God told you to control it, if he said you be the steward, what he expects you to do is be the steward. Handle your business. Y'all ever heard it's better to give than to receive? You know what that scripture does not say? It's better to loan. Try to avoid loaning. In fact, avoid it. My wife is my witness to this. She cannot think of a time I've loaned anybody anything. I've had friends say I need, and and they said I'm gonna pay you back, and I told them don't worry about it, because I knew what you asked me. You wouldn't ask me if you could pay me back. You wouldn't have. All right, how many of y'all ever borrow? Okay. How many of y'all paid it back? Come on, raise your hand. You paid it back. Yeah. How was that experience? The best advice is to get out of the contract. Try to get out of it. Put yourself at their mercy. Do whatever you can. Be a gazelle. Be a bird in a trap. Do whatever you can. That's another way of saying you're kind of stuck. That's what that is saying. He's like, don't make the mistake in the first place. If you've already made the mistake, don't make it a second time. All right? One day this man asked this angel, and it's my last story, and I'll let you go. Yeah, a man was talking to an angel. I know what you're thinking. This man asked us. It's not a true story. All right. Man asked the angel. He said, look, can you give me something? The angel said, what do you want? He said, I want a copy of the Wall Street Journal this time next year. Angel went. Man got a copy. So you know what he did? He went to the stocks and he looked at the stocks. And as he was looking at the stocks, he's like, yeah, okay, so I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to invest in this. And the angel said, hey, flip the page. And he flipped the page. And when he flipped the page, there was an obituary. And his name was there. You don't know how long you're going to be here. While you're here, just be obedient to God. Just do what God tells you to do. Don't be the man that fills up his barns and says, I'm rich now, so I'm going to sit back and take it easy. Handle your business as God says handle your business. Be a good steward. And it begins with not getting into bad contracts. God bless you. All right, let's stand. Let's come together.